YouTube, what did YouTube? Down Home News TV, I am your host, Dre. And got a article of the Drudge Report. I guess it's coming from dnyuz.com. The title is Fame Analysis Final Forecast is a Fall of the U.S. Economy. And I'm not sure if y'all saw the news over the past couple weeks when the news media was kind of upset that Trump was saying that he hopes the economy crashes while he's not in office. Excuse me. I've been hearing it over the past few years that our economy is on the brink of collapsing, but especially the dollar. But I'm pretty sure the people in the news media cycle has more intel about it than we do, but they made it a big deal because Trump was saying that he wanted it to crash when he's not in office so he doesn't get the blame. But let's check out what the famed analysis has to say. Over his 54 years as a financial analyst, Richard X. Bove perfected the art of grabbing attention. Throughout thousands of newspaper interviews, cable news appearances, and radio segments, Mr. Bove turned what can be a dull by the numbers career into a more showy one. Weighing in on the economy and the inner workings of Wall Street, he often bucked the conventional wisdom and made enemies along the way. By his own recollection, he never turned down a media request. American Banker once called him the country's most quotable bank analyst. Last week, a few hours after completing a spot on Bloomberg's television, the 83-year-old announced his retirement. He took that weekend off and then jumped right back in. In an interview with the New York Times, Mr. Bove, who goes by Dick, shared a dire outlook on the U.S. economy and his former profession. The dollar is finished as the world's reserve currency, Mr. Bove said. Matter of factly, excuse me, perched in an armchair outside his home office just north of Tampa, from which he predicted that China will overtake the U.S. economy. No other analysts will say the same because they are, as he put it, monks praying to money, unwilling to speak out on the mainstream financial system that employs them. Many analysts are rewarded for coming up with unique but inconsequential and arcane ideas, he said. Peppering his criticism with profanities, Mr. Bove worked at 17 brokerage firms during his career. As he spoke, a technician was trying to restore his home internet after his final employer, the boutique brokerage Odeon Capital, pulled the plug on his last day. Mr. Bove, who began his career before ATMs were commonplace, began appearing in the media in the late 1970s when he was a construction industry analyst with pessimistic views on homes that didn't always pan out. He quickly shifted to weighing in on high finance, giving him a front row seat to the savings and loan crisis that felled more than 1,000 banks in the 1980s and 1990s. He later chronicled how the surviving banks bulked up with big bets that would lead to the 2008 financial crisis and a series of new regulations. Among Mr. Bove's more famous calls, identifying a powder keg in the housing market as early as 2005 and predicting that some major banks would quickly bounce back afterward. So he was correct about the 2005 housing market, but wrong on the banks quickly bouncing back. His 2013 book, Guardians of Prosperity, Why Americans Need Big Banks, argued that crackdowns on the industry would crimp lending to small businesses. He has now changed his tune on the primacy of U.S. banks, particularly after last spring's regional banking crisis. He sees the offshoring of American manufacturing as the ultimate threat to the financial sector and the dollar because the people making the goods elsewhere are getting greater and greater control of the means of production and therefore greater and greater control of the world economy and therefore greater and greater control of the money. Excuse me. Mr. Bove was fired twice from big firms Dean Witter Reynolds and Raymond James, in the former instance for being too bullish on bank stocks. Bank Atlantic, now defunct unsuccessfully, sued him over a critical 2008 research report. The headline of the Times article about the episode called him the loneliest analyst. One way that's still true is he endorses cryptocurrency, an area that few other financial analysts will touch, which he sees as a natural beneficiary of the decline of the dollar. Plenty on Wall Street viewed Mr. Bove as a crank or an attention seeker, but plenty of others listened. Those who paid attention included Jamie Dimon, the chief executive of J.P. Morgan Chase, whom Mr. Bove generally praises. Mr. Dimon, through a spokesman, said he had read Mr. Bove's work to the end and it found it insightful. One who evidently isn't a fan, Brian Moynihan, the head of Bank of America, who hasn't spoken to an analyst in a decade ever since Mr. Bove visited the bank's Manhattan headquarters and told the executive that they were foolish to expand their investment banking operation. A spokesman for the bank said its head of investor relations didn't recall the conversation. Mr. Bove now says he was wrong and counts himself amused that he wasn't invited back. I'd like to be a pain in the ass at times, he said, pausing for effect. A lot of times. A Queens native who never quite shook the New York accent despite 30 years living in Florida, Mr. Bove attributes the longevity of his career to an independent streak that includes an unwillingness to read the work of any rival analyst. He readily admits that luck has played a part too, marveling at his good health despite no regular exercise and a tendency to drink top shelf tequila neat. He said that he said he had earned more than 1 million one year but otherwise averaged 700,000 in annual pay. Chief executive of major banks he covered can be paid more than 30 million a year. That helped him buy a string of timeshares and invest in a handful of mostly unsuccessful business ventures, including 4 now shuttered pizza parlors in Tampa area. Did he ever try his hand at making a pie? No, I never did, he said. That was a problem. Yeah, I don't know too much about Mr. Bove, but obviously he's been around for a while longer than I have, and I was just curious about the statement that Trump made a couple weeks ago saying that he hopes the economy crashes, but not under his watch and everybody through his fit. But yeah, let me know what y'all think about this article. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Excuse me. Down on News TV, I'm Dre. Y'all have a good one.